Welcome back to Morning Express. To set the ball rolling on the program this morning and also make commentary on certain key national issues, our studio is being graced by Dr. Aliyu Ilas, who is a political economist and also a public affairs commentator, a patriotic Nigerian who loves to lend his thoughts to issues of national interest. A very warm welcome to you, Doctor. It's wonderful to have you in the studio this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, very quickly now, without wasting much time, we saw rather a very historic event yesterday at the State House with, the president meeting the River State Governor alongside City Minister Barrister Wike to negotiate or talk about a planned resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni Land, which has stopped for a very long time. This is the first reaction I want you to make before we get into the president's mediation between Governor Fubara and Minister Wike.
Right. I think this is the first one is for economic advantage of Nigeria.
Exactly.
And I salute President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You know, if you look at since he became president, we've been going up in terms of oil production. You know, now it's about they're targeting 2 million barrels from 1.8 million barrels per day. And from this gesture, even the Ogoni people will know that you actually have them in mind. Remember during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, there was this cleanup that was initiated, and I recall it was Vice President Yemi Osibajo then that actually went to have negotiation. But I can tell you, I don't want it to be much more of rhetorics. I want them to put into action, because Ogoni people must have experienced a lot of rhetorics. People come there, launch the cleanup, launch a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it won't be, it will not manifest. So I think with this, if we can ensure that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu follow this, but I know he would like to follow. You know why? He's actually targeting to get more money from oil exploration. And to get more money, that simply means that you must take care of things that you take care of to actually get that. Recall that in terms of vandalization, he also continued the way President Muhammadu Buhari gave it to an indigene of that environment to actually secure the environment. You also know that even the Mele Kyari, they do more to actually fight all those negative things that are negating oil exploration and as expected. So I think it's a good one that we are starting it. And it's a good one that we also see the leaders of Ogoni coming together to actually discuss it with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Now, in terms of the Ogoni cleanup, which has been a very huge bottleneck for Nigeria's federal government for a very long time, and the Ogoni people have also decried, the environmental degradation that oil exploration has caused, in their land. It's no news that it has been a very big issue. What do you think the federal government plans on doing with regards to this? It's one thing to mediate, it's one thing to negotiate and go back to exploring. But how do we ensure that, firstly, Ogoni Land is cleaned up, secondly, we don't experience yet another environmental degradation or mess like we have seen before?
Right, that actually made us to lose a lot of biodiversity, which is a serious problem. And even the aquatic nature that we expect to enjoy in that area must have been killed. So, but I think government should structure it. When you structure things, it makes it much more easier, whereby you say, okay, every 3 months we have a monitoring team, then these are what we want to achieve in 1 year. So when we have such measurements, such a categorization of such a plan, I think that makes it work beyond. So as at yesterday, I expect government to say, okay, these are my committee member to look into it, and they should involve one of the traditional rulers. Even the governor could be part of the team so that they can expedite and make it happen. Because people in Niger Delta, I must tell you, it's like there's a way President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is enjoying them. There's always calmness in that area. We don't hear a lot of so because he's enjoying that, he also needs to do more
for them.
And I'm sure that's why he needs to make sure that the cleanup begins as soon as possible.
Well, let's keep fingers crossed and hope that the cleanup begins as soon as possible. One of the major, things I took away from that, from post meeting, that high-powered meeting, is the fact that the governor said that that's Governor Sasiminalai Fubara, that River State or Ogoni people will do just as the president has, instructed, while also noting that the president had instructed the National Security Advisor Malam Noor Ribado, to lead the negotiation process. But in your opinion, what do you think we should be looking out for with regards to the negotiation? It was a closed-door meeting, a closed-door, high-powered meeting. We were not privy to, seeing or hearing exactly what was discussed in that meeting. But going forward, what should we be expecting?
Right. When I heard that, got to know that it was the National Security Advisor that is going to head. So I tried to look at why is he bringing Security Advisor to this case, because I never expect it to be National Security. So, but like you said, we are not privy to what they actually discussed. But for him to put him, maybe he wants it to be out of politics itself. Maybe he wants someone who can actually do it professionally. Perhaps maybe that's the reason. But for me, I was thinking you look for a top politicians that can actually, or somebody from that environment. But far, is it Adamawa to and a security advisor to go and intervene and look into it?
Apart from the concept of, or the fact that Malam Noor Ribado is from Adamawa, I think maybe the president might have viewed it from the point of him being the national security advisor and having understood the dynamics of ensuring the security of the nation as an entity, not to allow tensions to escalate in certain regions of the country, especially volatile regions like the Niger Delta or the northeastern part of the country. As the NSA, don't you think he understands these things better?
Right. I think for security, I think he understood everything better as at now. He understand. And he has the tentacles to actually call on anybody to brief him as an Wendy. However, sometimes you have to look at those cases beyond even kinetic measure to non-kinetic measure, because whereby you have to do a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussions that will make people, by the time people even get to know you're a security person, so people want to avoid you in terms of discussion, so that they won't expose themselves for that. So that's why sometimes you need to look at people that can actually go, that will not have that security apparatus or security tendency to actually mediate or look into some issues. But however, this is Mr. President. I'm sure you understand why he decided to use the NSA, Malam Noor
Ribado. All right, fantastic. Well, let's also turn our attention to yet another, dynamics within the meeting where the president has continued to mediate between the FCT Minister, Barrister Nyesom Wike, and the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, in a feud that has, left a lot of party members within the People's Democratic Party, especially in Rivers State, in a state of disarray.
Well, beyond the President Bola Tinubu intervention, I see this case set to be after 2027.
Why? Why so far off?
Because there's a lot of cases in court, and I'm not sure Minister Wike wants to let go, and I'm not sure that the Fubara also want to let go. But I saw one dynamics that is quite that I'm expecting from that. I'm envisaging whereby Fubara will come to APC, because all these things we are looking at, if Fubara just change and become APC member,
everything will go.
Everything will go, because even the president will need Fubara more in 2027 than Minister Wike.
Now break that down. how is that possible?
Right. Ideally when it comes to election, the governor have a lot of things to do in terms of election, and you don't undermine the contribution of a state like Rivers when it comes to election. So if eventually all this brouhaha, the minister, because I can tell you PDP may not be able to save Fubara in the long run, and I'm not sure APP can do that either, nor a Labour Party. But if it goes to APC, and APC now said, well, he is now one of us. You will not be looking at the strength of even president alone. You'll be banking on the governors that are from APC, and they're ready to sacrifice. So by the time it is 2020, if he does that early, by the time 2027, he will have the choice of first refuser to contest again. He will be the one to say, I want to, I don't want to, and perhaps he want to, as a typical politician. So for him to get that ticket, if he's in APC, it is an automatic for him. For him to also get that, president will also need him to canvass more votes for him.
More votes during the elections.
Wike was able to canvass for president because he was a governor, as at the time President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was contesting as well. So the dynamics might change. So it will be that you are my minister, but I need that governor more as at now.
So your projections are that the governor, Sir Fubara, would likely,
Move to APC.
move to APC. Well, let's keep fingers crossed and look towards 2027 ahead of the general elections and see if, according to Dr. Aliyu's predictions, if Governor Sasimidolai Fubara will eventually move to the APC to ensure that peace and stability returns to Rivers State. Now, this is just your final comments. We have quite a lot of catching up to do. I'm afraid time is not really on our side, but just your final comments on the Ogoni Land on the Ogoni Land exploration situation just before we move on to another issue.
Historically, if you look at that Ogoni Land, I think people feel searching. People feel how do I call it? They don't undermined by past administration. So if Tinubu can actually move into actions, I think people will appreciate him more in that area, and there will be much opportunity for exploration, and we'll enjoy more tranquility in that area.
All right, Dr. Aliyu. Now, another issue here in the news is a recent statement by Minister Bangudu, where he mentioned that the president is steering the economy in the right direction and it is determined to stay course. However, these comments have been refuted by rather disturbing figures on the front cover of the Daily Courier. Now, I will quickly take the headline stories of This Day and Daily Courier, and I'll come back to you to have you react to that. Let's pick up This Day newspaper and see if we can have that headliner. Bangudu says Tinubu steering economy in right direction and determined to stay course. Says petroleum, solid minerals, creative industry sectors taxed to unlock potential. Explains how tax reform bills passage will achieve 18% revenue to GDP target. President's reforms will reset Nigeria, says Governor Sani on the sideline. Insists pains associated with federal government's policies temporary. Away from the This Day newspaper, the Daily Courier is up next. Let's see what it says on the front cover of the Daily Courier. Contrastly, Nigeria's debt burden rises to 142 trillion naira amid exchange rate volatility.
Correct.
Analysts caution Nigeria against over-reliance on foreign borrowing. External debt in Naira's terms spikes by 9.22% due to currency depreciation.
Right.
With this figure and the minister's comments, is the president really steering us in the right direction?
Well, my fear is that let all this policy not be counterproductive in the long run. Because, just like when you are trying to fix something, you're also doing what will also jeopardize what you're actually doing. Well, I don't expect less from Bangudu. Bangudu is saddled the responsibility of a budgetary plan.
Yeah.
So, and he must have a plan for that budget. But are they in the right direction? That question beg for an answer. And why am I saying this? You recall that the IMF is it chairman or DG came and said within 15 years, continuously investing, resetting before we can actually enjoy. And if you look at that, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must have delivered power by then. And I must tell you, flotation of Naira actually eroded a lot of things from the advantage of first subsidy removal. You know, first subsidy removal ordinarily should have advantage more now.
But because the Naira had been floated,
it brings a lot of problem. Because look at our debt now from 94 trillion thereabouts to about 142. That simply means the gain has been eroded. How? So if you actually share 1.5 trillion in terms of FAC allocation, before you expect the results compared to the 600 billion we are sharing before. But now it does not really even add value in terms of value compared to 600 billion share in last 2 years compared to 1.6 trillion. That simply means that if you even have the money to construct a road now, the money you are going to use because of the forex problem is going to be even more than the value before. So I see that eroding, just like the Daily Courier said, eroding the benefit that we're supposed to have taken. And you must also see this. I must say this. I see Nigeria that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu along his people will be able to implement a lot of projects.
Okay.
But the problem is that citizens will have problem of purchasing power. Just like the road is glittering, everything is fine.
But you can't afford petrol to put in your car and drive on those glittering roads.
You're even mentioning petrol. You can't even afford meal. You know, and he has also said it in the TV when President said I have a friend who uses Rolls Royce, but now he's actually using a Honda. If you look at that, that simply means that you have the money. You can have ₦1,000,000 in your hand, but what can that ₦1,000,000, do for you? That's the problem we are facing now.
One major comment made by Minister Bangudu is the fact that he's insisting that the pains associated with the federal government's policy is temporary. Why do Nigerians have to bear certain pains as with regards to federal government's policies? Are Nigerians meant to continue suffering just because, because the president wants to change the country? And what is the projection? It's been almost 2 years since he assumed office, and yet Nigerians continue to be patient. Nigerians continue to bear, you know, the brunt of all these policies that many people have argued is anti-people.
Right. Well, the fact is that there is price for every development.
Okay.
However, it shouldn't be caught throat cutting, you know. It shouldn't be, you know, because we have to live to enjoy the change you're actually bringing. So it must have human face, and that's what we are trying to say. That's why I say that you don't bring everything together at the point. You could look at the tax reform bill. You recall that I told you, was it in this studio I said that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must compromise. If not, that bill will not go. He ended up compromising. And how did he compromise? Actually, according to Ayodele, he said that there's going to be increment in VAT from 7.5 to 10 to 15. They negate it because you cannot just move things like that, and you have reset it. They also say, you know, if you look at the issue of consumption and what have you, they've also actually agreed to review. So you must do it in human phase. You cannot reset such country like Nigeria, you know, at a go. You must take time and look at it how you do it systematically. And you cannot do it only. You must also involve the governors, the stakeholders, even traditional rulers when you are bringing all this. So for me, if you are bringing a reform, it's a good one. But please, you have 4 years. Why not spread it along? Possibly you still have another opportunity. So, and it's what you do now that will determine what happens in 2027. Because I'm sure that Nigeria is discovering that election or governance does not really have to do with I am Yoruba, I'm Ibira.
It's about delivery.
It's about delivery. Because in the long run, we have President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years. What has he actually transformed for the North?
Absolutely, almost nothing.
We have Olusegun Obasanjo. What has he actually transformed to the, you know? So also Jonathan. So it's not that when you have the people there, so we must begin to look at who can actually deliver, not where the person is actually coming from.
Now, with regards to the tax reform bills that you've mentioned, Bangudu had argued that the passage of the bill will achieve about 18% revenue to GDP target in the country. In common terms now, can you break this down? Right. And do you think this is a good projection for Nigeria?
Right, no doubt. After PIA in the Fourth Republic, I don't think there is a good bill like a tax reform bill, because it has come to settle a lot of things. You know, it talks about people earning very little, they will not be paying tax to an extent. People are doing business within 50 billion or less, they will not be paying. And also say, you know, it give a lot of room, you know. Even there's a tax waiver on food and a lot of things. And in the long run, it will also discourage double taxation, which is the major problem. So if those bureaucratic bottlenecks, you know, if those challenges are taken away, and also we will be collecting our tax directly. It's not be that one person, one corner will be benefiting the taxation. Example, those people that are throwing, you know, stick on the road, those roadside. So it will be going directly. And the way they want to collect, they will collect and share. Yes. So if we go digitalize and we, you know, it will definitely help our GDP, and we'll have more. In fact, it will give government much more revenue, and it will also encourage have you seen manufacturing sector? They didn't complain about this tax. Did you see them talking?
Certainly
it's
not.
Because everybody have taken their time to study it and discover it's going to be advantageous to the manufacturing industry. That is part of. So in the long run, it might not be quick. In the long run, we'll enjoy the benefits.
Well, it might not be quick, but in the long run, let's hope to enjoy the benefits. The minister has also, you know, taxed the petroleum, solid minerals, and creative sectors to unlock the potentials inherent in them.
Right.
away from this issue of whether or not the president is, steering the economy in the right direction, another pertinent issue in the news is the Japa syndrome that is, sweeping through Nigeria's health sector, with about 2 chief medical directors in the country decrying that in about 2 years, our hospitals might be empty as doctors, nurses, health practitioners are leaving the country in droves due to search for greener pastures outside of Nigeria.
According to the former Minister of Health, is he, what is it, Ngige?
Yeah.
He said we cannot run out of doctors in Nigeria. So,
but we are gradually running out of doctors.
16,000.
And the CMDs are confirming this.
Right. I think we cannot stop that except we make our own soil, our own hospital services attractive. I think that's the only way, because you cannot, there's a time that this minister of health and social welfare tried to bring a law that you must sign this and that for what have you. I think we cannot stop it. If not even only in health sector. I don't know why we are adamant on health sector. Do you know the tech too?
The tech industry.
Do you know the bank, is also having issue, because, the fintech rather is also having issue. People are just, discover that we do it better in Nigeria and people are moving. And Nigeria are moving outside in droves, not only medical. It's only that when you have medical, we feel the gap. So I think we need to do what is what we're expected to do. Because if you look at those people that are working in hospital, how much is their salary? We've seen a lot of strike by health workers, not even only doctors, because I don't like when you mention doctors. What about other health workers, nurses, pharmacists, all of them are moving in droves. So I think since we have realized this, what are government doing? I want them to have a 1 year, 2 year plan that, okay, this is what we want to do to discourage Japas. Beyond creating policy that will negate them traveling, make welfare one of the attractive things to make them to stay.
Welfare in what sense?
Right, a better salary, and beyond salary, working environment is another thing. So when we have a good working environment, salary are on time and you give them good pay. Before now they said once you get some work, you having a car, choice of accommodations. Those things are attractive and it makes people, and don't blame them. When you get maybe 200,000 naira salary here and you get to abroad, they are paying you about 2 million value by 2 million naira value. You have to just rethink it. That will you continue? Perhaps the funniest thing is that if you go America, go UK, see that we have a lot of Nigerians, and they still continue to open door, even in Saudi Arabia.
And they continue to welcome these health practitioners,
right? Because
they understand the value of these people more than the Nigerian government does.
Beyond that, studying health in Nigeria is quite cheap. Health-related courses. You can't go to Saudi, you can't go to UK or America that you want to become a medical doctor. You know how much you have to cough out to study. That's why you even hardly see Nigerians sending their children to study medical related. They will bring them down to Nigeria to study, then they will now move
to practice
because it is cheaper to study.
Now, one of the many concerns raised by these CMDs is that the Nigerian military, alongside the judiciary as well, is being favored more than the medical or the health sector in the country. How true is this? And
it appears so true. Okay. Right, because even remember what Wike just did.
Yes.
He was trying to build out for them. You recall that they also moved their salary percentage. You recall it was even approved before the minimum wage,
which was about 300%.
Right, 300% increase. So if you look at that, that means you are taking you are discouraging them in that. And I like that argument. I think they should push that argument further so that they can actually increase their salary and other benefits during. Because the joy of doing everywhere, especially a sensitive work at that, is to have a good income that can even take you home, take care of your children. So as a medical doctor, they also deserve a good salary. If the judiciary is in need of that, they should. And I want to also talk about their own medical association. They should push more for that better pay.
Now, how big a threat is this to our health sector? If you take a look at how the world continues to grapple with medical emergencies or epidemics or pandemics and all of that, yet we are seeing our own health practitioners leaving the country to other climes of the world to practice there. Should, in case we have or in the instance, or in the case we have an emergency like the COVID-19 pandemic again in the country,
Beyond
how
COVID-19,
disastrous will this
beyond
be?
COVID-19, the ratio of patients to doctor, it's just too much. Go to any general hospital or go to any hospital now, you discover that when you have the doctor you have, because I recall the last time we tried to go to government hospital, you know, you'll be there and you'll be a very long queue that you need to see doctor. Remember, they'll be calling you one after
the other.
So you can go there for 4 hours, you have not been, because that simply appears to be shortage of a medical doctor. Sometimes you get there, they'll say medical doctor is attending to others. So I think that, and it's also encouraging them to have a private practice, because if your salary is not enough, you want to go and establish one hospital somewhere, then you quickly go there, solve the problem before you, and that will be your first priority because you think that brings you more money. So that's just the problem. So the ratio is just too poor, and we need to do more to have much more medical doctor and discourage people from actually traveling. But as individual, you want to think, you don't want to find reason to discourage them because they need a greener pasture.
They need greener pastures. everybody wants a better life. Everybody wants more bread on their table.
Right.
So, but let's also talk about how complicit some private medical centers are in taking away the attention of medical practitioners from public health, the public health sector to the private health sector, where a medical practitioner is employed by the state government or the federal government in a hospital, and they don't pay much attention to their duties, official duties, where they give more attention to call to duty in private hospitals where they earn more than where they are assigned by the government.
So I think we need to justify this by, okay, if you pay them very well, for instance, maybe a medical doctor gets about 1.2 million naira in a month, and there's a private practice that will attract maybe less than that, he will not decide to go. But if the private practice at one time attract 200,000 naira and he has to go and do maybe serial session in that private hospital, he want to go. So that's just the problem. So we must make this government practice to be much more attractive in terms of welfare, of timing, compared to private sector, because the private sector have they have what to use to lure them, because it's about pay. Come for a week, you are getting 500,000. Then your own salary, even a month, is not
up to that,
up to 300,000. So you have to really think about this. Human. Perhaps they will say, well, if my resumption should be 2 o'clock in the government, let me go and do 9 to 1. Perhaps you would have been exhausted for you, and that's why sometimes some of them are temperamental by the time you even get to them in public hospital, because they have actually get exhausted somewhere before they resume government work. So government wants to discourage them from that, and by discouragement simply means paying them well,
encouraging them.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. In Nigeria at the moment, it appears that most parents, wards, or even people in general would often discourage individuals or youngsters who want to go into the medical line of practice, citing these same issues that we continue to see every day. Oh, doctors are no longer being paid well. The profession used to be juicy, used to be flashy back in the day, but now you just go in there and suffer. You study for 10 years or so, come out, and your pay will not be enough to buy you a car in 1 or 2 years.
Right.
Is this really an issue that we have to deal with on one hand? Also, the issue of the cutoff mark when it comes to gaining admission to study medicine in the university.
Well, let me start from where you end. I think studying medicine in Nigeria is not a problem anymore, because now we have many universities. Before we used to have only AB. In fact, it did not central. I recall that time it's either ABU or JOS. But now every state have their university, not even one. More than one now,
and almost every university offers medicine.
So because in terms of, we are not shortage in terms of school to study medical practice, but the problem is that we only have issue of encouraging them to stay. Then you spoke about parents discouraging children. There are some services that you cannot separate them from the offerer. Right? So as a doctor, you need to be at the hospital to actually, just like you now, at your essential services. Is it that you are here or you are not
Or I'm
here?
not here.
Or you are not here. So such services need a lot of pay. You need to encourage such persons, because you cannot just be, some offices or work are there that you can do it from your house.
Remote jobs.
Remote jobs. Some work that there that you can only give direction, but you cannot separate a medical doctor from the job itself. So, and that's why it takes all its time, right? So let's compare it to a pharmacist. A pharmacist can even go and have a pharmacy somewhere and is working in an hospital. It may not interfere. But a medical doctor
has to be there.
Has to be there. That's what I'm trying to.
As long as you're on call duty.
Even if you go to for private work, you must be there to actually carry out that activity.
Yeah.
So, and that's why they deserve to be well paid. So for parents who say they don't want their children to, I think it's good that we encourage our children to take. It's a noble job, even beyond the pay itself. It's service to humanity.
And how do we restore that nobility in service with regards to medical profession, to also let people know that beyond service there is also good remuneration?
I think the onus is on the Minister of Health. He has worked both in and out. He's a global person who understands what it means to pay people well for service. So I think the minister needs to really do something meaningful. Not the policy. They try to bring a policy that you must sign, you must do this before you go. It should go beyond that. You also encourage them to earn more. Imagine if you're a medical doctor in Nigeria and the government is employing and they are giving you a car key.
Yes.
A
residential.
It really makes a lot of, because
that used to be the case.
Right. If you remove residential, if you remove house rent from the problem of it would be discouraged to travel, and because he knew that I have a good apartment close to where, and it belongs to me. It's one of those discouragements. But if you are a medical doctor and for the good 12-15 years you don't have your house of your own, it's become, and
you only barely drive a rickety old car.
In fact, rickety old car, and they will say that's a medical doctor. It's not encouraging. And that's the challenge we have in Nigeria.
Well, it's about encouragement. It's about ensuring that our medical practitioners are well remunerated to make sure we keep them in the country and stop the spate of the Japa syndrome sweeping through our health care sector. Now, away from health, let's take a look at the southwest Nigeria, where Amotekun has, at the moment, mobilized about 2,000 men to sweep through the southwest forest to curb an issue where it has been described as bandit influx into the southwest. It's quite disturbing when you think about it, Dr. Aliyu. When you think of bandits, you think northwest. When you think of terrorists, you think northeast. You think of unknown gunmen, IPOP and all their activities, sit at home Mondays. You think of the southeast. But it's surprising to hear that in the southwest, they are bandits.
Right. So when we say the word bandits, if you look at the word bandits, it could be anywhere. Okay. So it's just our ability to actually sweep them off. And I want to salute Amotekun for being proactive. Yeah. Look at that, proactive. Yeah. They want to sweep. They want to curb. They want to remove the entire. That's what we expect. Those 2,000, maybe 500 from here, they come together and make sure that they remove
clean sweep.
Clean sweep. I think that's what we need to continue. It shouldn't even be something that will be in the news. I think maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, you try to carry out such, so that you will remove all these unknown gunmen in the southeast, so that you can actually checkmate what they actually do. And that's what I expect the northeast, northwest to also carry out. And Amotekun should not do this alone. They need to engage Nigeria Army, to join them in this, because we may not be able to overpower in some places. They may want to overpower in some places, but when you have military that they come with copter,
or even drones,
come from the air, come from drone, and you sweep them, because you may not have the necessary equipment. You are only going with gun, and there's a level at which you're gone. But if you have the air support, maybe by the time you notice something is wrong here, you just call the military. They are there for you to actually sweep that place. I think that's a good one. So we need to do that in other parts of Nigeria. I think every state should even embark on that.
But earlier, your comments earlier when you started off, you said when you hear bandits or the word bandits, it could be anywhere. Now, particularly Southwest governors have said or alleged that bandits from the Northwest are the ones infiltrating into the Southwest.
Well, I think that has proven not to be true in some cases.
Why so?
We've seen, was it in Oyo State whereby some people came and said they are OPC and they want to take over Oyo State government. Don't you see it?
Now that's banditry.
That is banditry because it simply means people with, non-state actor that want to take power into their hands. So it could be from anywhere. You understand? And when you say terrorists, it's another high level of maybe. If bandit is allowed, they don't grow.
It's banditry pro max.
Exactly. So that's just what I'm trying to establish. Look at what is happening in the southeast. Unknown gunmen. Still sit at home. It's still form of banditry. Until when we really get to bring out, and banditry will develop anywhere in the world if they give them space. Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
If you give them space, but if you really take the bull by the horn and make sure you sacrifice any person that tries to go in that direction.
Now the Corps is seeking advanced technology, better arms, and better equipment to tackle insecurity within the region. And this is also, if you relate it to recent calls for, state policing and all of that, do you think Amotekun will come in handy when state policing is finally achieved across the country, especially with regards to ensuring that security is restored, the stability of the Southeast is restored? Because as it is right now, we are almost seeing a depiction of the Northeast and the Northwest security situation in the Southwest.
Right. Like that's what we always said. If you fail to curb a particular menace somewhere, it will find a way to get to other places. And that's why we want to salute Amotekun again. Yeah. State policing will only come to complement what Amotekun is doing already. Right?
Or to better enhance them.
Exactly, because Amotekun is on ground. Even state police simply means that people in your environment will be the ones securing you.
Yes.
Right? Because you can't take people from Sokoto to go and secure people in Calabar. It's a serious contradiction. You may not understand the soil. Yes. But if you get to meet people that are there already who understand they will just complement. So I think that is going to be complementary.
It's going to be complementary, certainly. Let's hope that we get to complement that, but we will still carry on. We have been given the go-ahead to exceed the 9 o'clock threshold, so we will continue to fire on. If you remember a recent statement made by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, about engaging, manufacturers of local arms and ammunition in the fight against insurgency, terrorism, banditry, and all of that in the country, that was met with a lot of criticisms by different people, where they cited that the CDS should have tilted his comments or his attention towards more advanced technology, much like the terrorists in the Northeast are using, rather than locally fabricated arms. What are your thoughts?
Right. I think that's it's a good one, and it's quite instructive. The best weapon you could create is the one you create in-house, because nobody will understand how you actually, and that's why you see that Russia, America is having serious competition. You know why? Russia built their own, fabricate their own weapon. Yeah. So America do not have a total knowledge of what they do. But when you continue to buy weapons from outside, people understand what you are. In fact, they can even deactivate those weapons from anywhere.
Because they have the technology at the back end to control
the world is dangerous now. Once you buy any weapon or any gadget, please prepare. Anytime, any day, they can just press off, and everything you believe in will be deactivated. So we need to start developing. I think when this NDLA chairman, I think he was formerly the head of that local fabrication or what have you before, I think there was some effort he made that period. So we need to move it. Any technology can be developed locally if you have the technical know-how. So we can actually send our people outside to actually learn some of those things and come back home. Perhaps we look into our Nigerians who have actually worked there to come back local to actually do. So there's no weapon. It will be cheaper if you develop it yourself. The secrets will be there, and the people will also understand the handling of it very well. So it's good we develop our own. No matter what we are buying, please let's complement this with what we are, so I can develop gradually. Because I can tell you, people developing those weapons are far from from us until we start before we can now call for those technology to actually so we can combine the two.
To combine the two.
Right, we need to combine
our locally fabricated ones as well as you know the had high and advanced technology from outside of Nigeria. Well, Dr. Aliyu, moving on, let's head to Kano State and see what we can get out of there, where a recent report is alleging a sale of federal government assets in the state. Now, this has torn workers and the company apart. That's the company that has purchased some of these, you know, federal government assets from the state government. Now, this is captured on the front cover of the Daily Independent. Let's see if we can take that headliner again to give us better insight into what this discussion would look like. On the Daily Independent, the headline story reads, alleged sale of federal government assets in Kano tears workers, company apart. Accompanying strap lines on the front cover of the Daily Independent say, workers petition Attorney General of the Federation and Kano government. We followed due process in our transactions, MD NRC Property says. And Railway Workers Union president says petitioners are faceless. Now, concerned members of the Nigerian Union of Railway Workers and Senior Staff Association of Communications Transport Corporation, on one hand, and the management of the Nigerian Railway Properties Limited over the alleged sale and conversion of the corporation's property for private use in Kano. While some of the NURC and SACTAC members claim that the corporation's property in Kano was unjustly converted to private use, the property management company and Comrade Innocent Ajiji, the president of NUR, said due process was strictly followed.
Right. It's a serious issue.
It's a very big issue because
it's a three-way now.
All right.
Federal government, state government, and private. Yes. So it's a serious issue. But I think most of Nigeria Railway Corporation's property have been actually sold to an extent. So I don't know. So but the fact just remains that this is federal government. So federal government has the final say on this issue. However, the states where it is domiciled, you know, sometimes states may join somehow to actually give the build the property. Something you recall that most states can come as a complementary support.
Yes.
The only problem now is the private involvement. So the private person needs to do more to actually convince the federal government that they actually take due process to acquire those properties. But it was listed. Was it through procurement? Was it advertised? These are the things that now they have to prove.
Well, those details are not quite spelled out clearly. But on the issue of sale of federal government assets, generally across the country, we have seen situations or reports where people sell off either local government assets, state government assets, or federal government assets on a low-key level without anybody knowing. And these corporates most times sort of go scot-free. In fact, their crimes are not even found out, at the end of the day. What do you have to say about
what's the role of BP in this says? Body of Public Enterprise. They are saddled with that responsibility of selling government properties. Because I didn't see them mentioned in this. When you say government, who is actually representing government? That's where we have to start from. Because it simply means if they are not involved, that means this illegally sold to the private owner, and the private person might be at the loss in the long run. Because federal government will say who actually authorize the sales of it. So now there's a corporate who actually collect the proceeds. So where is the proceed? Was it paying to the federal government coffers? Was it paying to private individual accounts? So I think this called for another work for EFCC or ICPC investigation. So I think we will look out for how they unravel the there's a mystery somewhere. Someone have sold it somewhere. Someone have collected the money. Who authorized? I think that's the question we need to raise.
Well, it's about authorization. It's about finding out who gave the authorization, how was money paid into, and what account was it paid into. Well, these are the questions. These are the issues raised. Now, the argument also comes from the angle of corruption within the system. You cited this agency,
BPE.
the BPE, that is saddled with the responsibility of selling government assets and remitting the proceeds to the federal government coffers. And yet we have individuals boycotting and doing all of that. Now, could this also be stemming from the angle of lack of remuneration, or are we just looking at a clear case of brute corruption?
It's a typical case of corruption, because once you abuse the process, and procurement is a very big process itself. If you look at procurement, it has to do with advertisement. People show interest. Then you now look at the bid. If you look at that process, it's not easy process for you to just acquire government property. So I think there's corruption at somewhere that they need to unravel. Perhaps state government also have to come, or is it state government that actually sold it? They have to come to terms and say, actually this belongs to us and that's why we are selling it. So how does it belong to you? At what point does the federal government cede that property to the state? These are the things they need to prove.
Well, I don't think it was particularly the state government that sold it, but in the MD of NRC Properties argument, he said that due process was followed in transactions, while the Railway Workers Union president in Kano said that the petitioners are faceless, which connotes a case of whistleblowing. Right. You cannot have a whistleblower saying something that they are not really, knowledgeable about.
No matter what they even say, it's raised concern.
Yes.
So it's called for investigation. If at all they are only saying it, they are faceless, but it should be investigated. Because perhaps when you see whistleblower, they are part of you.
Yes.
You may not actually know them.
In fact, it could be somebody who helped in facilitating the deal.
So they have their facts. And that's why we call for effective investigation into the sales of it.
Well, while the investigations are ongoing, there's very little to nothing we can, say. But hopefully that in the coming days or weeks, we get to hear something coming out of.
We get to hear. I hope we'll hear.
We get to hear.
I hope we will hear.
And we see the outcome of what the investigations will be like.
Most cases in Nigeria does not really see the light of the day. It's end on brouhaha. And before you know it, goes silent.
It's swept under the carpet.
So,
well, lastly, Dr. Aliyu, let's visit an issue that has been, biting on the backs of Nigerians for quite some time, which is the issue of electricity tariff in the country. Nigerians continue to grapple with high cost of electricity, and one major concern for most persons is the partitioning or banding of different parts of city areas in the country, band A, band B, band C, and whatnot, citing that Nigerians should all have equal access to electricity across the country.
Right. I recall I was at the NERC in a meeting. I was invited and they are discussing. And one thing we raised earlier at that time was that it's quite discriminatory.
Yeah.
That simply means you want to keep these people in perpetual darkness.
Yes.
I want to assure these people they will get the power. In the place of you saying that everybody should pay, you now say you have band A, band B, and band C. But generally, what we want is availability of electricity, and that's why we were happy when we get to know that Dangote, Total have actually moved away from the national grid, providing about 650 megawatts. That's a good one. So this is what we expect, and this is what can solve it, because having passed through National Assembly that is now in concurrent list now,
yes,
that we expect each state to be able by now to start, because state does not understand that investment in electricity it doesn't come cheap.
Yes.
So you must start it as a state before investors can actually come. So, but in terms of the tariff, I think this is a problem of even most business owners. Most of our problem, you could see that, I don't know if you're aware, most of us in central area now are now suffering. We are in perpetual darkness for businesses. I can tell you, for the past almost a week now, we've been buying fuel to power and no matter how band A is expensive, we must be sincere, you can't compare to this new price of petroleum, yes, PMS. So we've been, and I was told that they actually vandalize and steal equipment of the
of the national
of
grid?
national grid. I think it's quite surprising. Most areas are in perpetual darkness now. So how do they compensate us for that? So for me, I think band A. I mean, the way we are doing this is a serious problem, and there is also metering gap.
Yes.
You know, how will you not meter people and you want to be charging them? So you go through, use cap to actually calculate for them and tell them what to pay. It's a cheat on the part of the customer.
Now the metering gap in this case, which is about over 7 million on estimated billing, despite a 1.5 trillion naira intervention and free supply to the power sector, the metering gap on one hand could be coming from the angle of people boycotting or bypassing their meters.
No.
That is one. While on the other hand, persons who have not been able to gain access to these meters due to the failure of the agency saddled with the responsibility. The discos, yes. Exactly. The discos saddled with the responsibility of metering these houses or buildings.
So I think in the conceptualization of this privatization of electricity, we have made a lot of errors, and I think we should be able to review, because most of these discos did not come with anything. You know, they only come with
when you say errors, take us through the errors.
You know that when we are privatizing, you know, you have to bring your conditionalities that will suit Nigerians.
Yes.
But when we are doing that, there's an error on the federal government decision part, because if you look at most people that actually buy our discos, they are not even professionals. They only come with portfolio and buy, and they now seek for people that to manage it. Yes. So we fail to give them some conditions. If you buy electricity pole in your area or even a transformer, the day you bought it, it becomes a EDC property. It becomes Disco's property. So what are they actually investing? Look at this meter issue now. It is said that they're supposed to give us meter. At a point, government actually gave them money to meter everybody. I can tell you, at the time I bought meter last, I was told that they will keep I'll pay. They will now keep removing the money so that it will be freed. Up to now, we didn't see anything. So there's a serious issues, and you also have technical challenges. Why not produce this meter in Nigeria?
Now, I just want you to react to these metering interventions all put together to ensure that every single Nigerian gets a meter. The PMI gave 700 billion naira.
Right.
From the World Bank,
yes,
we got 500 million US dollars. NMP, 59.3 billion naira, and MAF 21 billion naira, totaling about 1.5 trillion naira in total as intervention,
right,
to ensure that meters are distributed to Nigerians across the country.
Right. At the beginning, I will go to the beginning again. When they brought about supporting Nigeria, especially World Bank, some of us argue that if you are supporting Nigeria, why are you buying the meter and bringing it to Nigeria? Why not? We have some meter producing company in Nigeria. Why not bring this money, support these people to actually produce this meter? So by the time you support them, you have technically empowered them. They can now produce. We don't have to import that. Now we are still importing meter. Yes. You know, and look at the forex level now. That's one. Number two, federal government also, you didn't mention federal government, they also bring some money to intervene in meter distribution to people. But upon that, we still have shortage of it. And that shortage of it, I will take it back to the discos. The responsibility of the discos to actually meter beyond this intervention. This intervention should have come as complementary to actually support them. So that's why I said at the beginning, if we have give these people condition that you must take responsibility of metering each houses, they would have seen it as a serious business. But as it were now, Nigerians still have the gap of metering. Now the government needs to intervene.
Still on the gap of metering. Now, the total number of customers that we have here is about 13.3 million customers, about 1.11%. Now, metered customers out of this 13.3 million is just 6.1 million. And meters installed in the third quarter of last year, 2024, is pegged here at 184,507 meters. Not even up to 200,000 meters.
This is the problem we're actually looking at. So this gap will continue. But I'm saying this, it appears that the discos are taking advantage of it.
Why?
Because if you don't have meter, you know, they just come and calculate the cap and say, all this community, this is how much you are going to pay. So it's a cheat on the part of the consumers. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because you cannot measure what you use, right? But if you have meter, I can decide to go and off when I'm going out and on when I actually.
You could buy your electricity token.
Exactly.
Load your.
You can actually even measure.
You can measure it.
What you are using.
If you are not at home, if you are not in your office, it is not reading. It is not being consumed.
Exactly.
But without the meter,
so someone else,
whether or not you have even stayed in the house for an entire month.
Okay, let me give you this example. We have a company close to me, and I reside in that area. So you'll be charging me, the way you now use what he used as a company and what I use. You use it to calculate the cap and now divide it over us. So it's not a fair one. That's why we said it's a cheat. And it gives them more money.
People who are not metered.
And it gives them more money, right? They make more money through that area. So they may use, for me, sometimes some of us look at it as they don't want to quickly meter people so they can get much more money from people. Now,
the Minister of Power, talking about, Adelabu, had mentioned something. I can't quite remember in detail, but a couple of days ago, where he said that Nigeria cannot yet attain a 24-hour power supply because vandals continue to vandalize the national grid, and all of that. But if you take a look at the power sector in the country, it is one of the sectors that has received in recent years the most amount of intervention, the most amount of allocation from the federal government to ensure that power is restored, or at least a reasonable amount of power is available for Nigerians.
I think when you talk about power sector, our problem is not generation. Our problem is not distribution. Our problem is transmission. So, and that's why when he said he's going to make sure that grid is changed, they're going to change it from central to each region, which is a very good one. So our major problem is transmission. I recall, is it Ata of governor of Akwa Ibom? Is it governor of Akwa Ibom?
No, not Akwa Ibom. Is it Pastor Omoy,
No. Past governor.
Oh, past governor of Akwa Ibom.
Of Akwa Ibom. Okay. Is it something Ata? He came on TV and said when he started generating, he's the first to generate power. He even called Obasanjo to come and actually during
back then
to come and actually launch. After he launched, he said he must transfer the power back to the national grid.
I remember that comment.
That's a serious, and that's where we start having the problem. So, but as at now, our major problem is transmission. We have our grids are old, and they can collapse at any time, and that's where we need to overhaul. So, I expect this minister to look into that transmission. I know that transmission is not privatized.
It's not privatized.
That's another problem. It's in the hands of federal government. So, what are we now doing?
But are the discos any better? Privatized discos now.
These discos, like I said earlier, when we employ those discos, when we sell it to them, we didn't give them the condition of the service they're supposed to render to the customer.
So, in your opinion, it was all done in a rush?
It was done in a rush. It was not professionally handled. I think it was during President Jonathan. If not, why will you not provide transformer for me? Why will you not provide any? If I provide it, you take over it, and you said I shouldn't even touch it at the point. You even barricade what I actually purchased.
What I bought with my own money.
So that's the problem we are having.
Well, Dr. Aliyu, your final comments on the program before we let you go concerning the issue of the metering gap and also the continued collapse of power grids across the country.
Right. I think we need to let the president get to know that energy security is a solution to development in any country. So until we have that energy security, which starts from power and electricity. As a small business person, all I need is to. I was just telling you about the experience we're having in the central area and some part of Abuja, that without power, we have expended even our profit for the month.
Yes.
It's a serious problem. So I think government should look into energy security. It is very, very key for Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Aliyu, I must thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you on Morning Extras.